My name is Madeline Dietrich, and I was 27 years old when I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from the person you love, it often comes from the person standing closest to them. At the time, my relationship with Adam Dietrich felt solid in a way that didn't require constant reassurance. We had been together for 2 years, long enough to move past the performative phase and into something quieter, steadier. We didn't live together yet, but we practically shared 2 apartments. Most nights were spent choosing which couch to fall asleep on, whose fridge needed groceries, whose place felt closer to work the next morning. We talked about moving in together like it was a matter of when, not if. There was no tension, no secrecy, no lingering sense that something was off. Adam had a best friend, Megan Holloway, who had been in his life since college. They were close in that effortless, history-rich way that comes from surviving early adulthood together. Inside jokes, shared memories, mutual friends, it never bothered me. I actually admired it. I thought it said something good about him, that he was capable of long-term loyalty. Megan was always around, always involved, always informed. I never questioned her place in his life, until she asked me to meet her for coffee. She texted me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Can we talk, just us? It's important." That should have been my first red flag, but I brushed it off. I told myself it was probably something mundane. Maybe she needed advice. Maybe she was planning something for Adam. Maybe she just wanted privacy. We met at a cafe near my office. Megan was already there when I arrived, sitting stiffly at a corner table, her hands wrapped too tightly around her coffee cup. She looked nervous in a way that felt rehearsed, like she had practiced this moment and still didn't feel ready. "I hate being in this position," she said almost immediately before I'd even taken my coat off. "But you deserve to know the truth." The words hit my chest harder than they should have. What truth? She hesitated, then leaned forward. "Adam's cheating on you." For a split second, everything inside me went quiet. Not shattered, just muted. My first instinct wasn't anger or heartbreak. It was disbelief, sharp and immediate. "No," I said, "that's not possible." "I didn't want to believe it either," she replied quickly, like she'd prepared for my reaction. "But I've seen the messages. He's been meeting up with someone from work. The nights he says he's working late, he's with her." I asked her to show me. She unlocked her phone and scrolled, turning the screen toward me. Screenshots of text conversations with a contact saved as J. The messages were flirty, suggestive, intimate in a way that left no room for misunderstanding. Plans to meet, jokes about being discreet, complaints about how complicated things had become. But as I stared at them, something felt wrong. The tone didn't sound like Adam. He was meticulous with punctuation, almost old-fashioned in his texting. These messages were all lowercase, filled with LOL, OMG, and shortcuts he never used. It was subtle, but once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. "Where did you get these?" I asked. "His phone," Megan said. "He left it unlocked at my place last week." "So you went through it?" I was worried she insisted. "He's been distant lately." That didn't match my reality at all. 2 nights earlier, Adam and I had been curled up on his couch, watching a movie, laughing, relaxed, affectionate. Nothing about him had felt distant. Before I could respond, Megan reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I need you to promise me something," she said. "Don't tell him I showed you this. He'll never forgive me. Just check his phone yourself. Or follow him one night. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't warn you." I left that cafe with a knot in my stomach, but it wasn't tied to Adam. It was tied to Megan. That night, while Adam was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I checked his phone. My hands were shaking, not because I expected to find something, but because the act itself felt like a violation of the trust we'd built. There was nothing. No J, no deleted threads, no suspicious contacts, nothing even remotely questionable. I sat on the edge of the bed, his phone heavy in my hands, and that was when memory nudged its way forward, something I had dismissed months earlier. 4 months ago, I'd received a friend request on Instagram from a woman I didn't know. Her profile said she worked in marketing, lived nearby, and shared mutual friends with me, including Adam and Megan. We chatted casually at first. Then she started asking questions about my relationship, about whether I felt settled too young, whether I ever wondered what I was missing. I'd blocked her and moved on. Sitting there, I realized that hadn't been the only one. And suddenly the warning Megan gave me didn't feel protective anymore. It felt planted. The silence after I put Adam's phone back on the nightstand felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. He came out of the shower a few minutes later, hair damp, smiling like everything in the world was exactly where it should be. He kissed my forehead, asked what I wanted for dinner, complained about a meeting he had the next morning. Nothing about him felt deceptive. Nothing felt rehearsed. If anything, he felt normal in a way that made the accusation against him feel almost cruel. That was when I understood something important. If someone was lying here, it wasn't Adam. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the coffee shop, to Megan's urgency, to the way she had framed everything as concern, while quietly asking me to spy on the man I loved. Around 2 in the morning, I grabbed my phone and started scrolling back through old messages, old notifications, old things I had brushed aside because they hadn't seemed important at the time. That Instagram account was the first one I looked for. I had blocked it months earlier, but unblocking it took only a second. When I opened the profile again, the first thing that hit me was how generic it all looked. The photos were attractive but oddly polished, like they'd been lifted straight from a stock photo site. The captions were vague. The comments were full of strangers. I tapped one of the photos and saved it, then ran a reverse image search. My stomach dropped. The image appeared on multiple websites under different names, used by different people in different countries. It wasn't real. The account wasn't real. And suddenly all those late-night messages felt less random and more intentional. I kept digging. A Twitter DM request from months back. Another woman, different name, different face, same tone. Friendly at first, then curious, then probing. Are you really happy? Don't you ever feel tied down? I had ignored that one too, chalked it up to the internet being the internet. Then there was the gaming Discord I used occasionally. A female gamer who had joined a channel I was in struck up conversation, bonded over nothing in particular, and then slowly steered things toward relationships, commitment, and doubt. At the time it had felt subtle, almost accidental. Now it felt coordinated. I sat on my bed for hours comparing messages, looking at timestamps, rereading phrasing. Once I noticed it, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Different platforms, different identities, same underlying push, same curiosity about my relationship, same attempts to destabilize it without being obvious. And they all seemed to know things about me that weren't public. My schedule, rough locations, the fact that Adam and I didn't live together yet, details about when he worked late or when I had time to myself. Information only a handful of people knew. Information Adam had shared with Megan. By morning, I had a headache and a certainty I couldn't shake. This wasn't coincidence. Someone had been watching my relationship closely enough to design multiple entry points into my life, all aimed at the same goal, making me doubt Adam. I called in sick to work that day, told Adam I thought I had food poisoning and needed to rest. He offered to come over immediately, concern in his voice, but I told him not to. I didn't want him sick, I said. The lie tasted bitter, but I needed space to think without his presence clouding my judgment. That afternoon, I made a call that changed everything. A friend from college had once mentioned knowing someone who worked in digital forensics, mostly for law firms, handling harassment and fraud cases. I dug up the number and explained vaguely at first that I thought I was being targeted by fake accounts. He didn't sound surprised, just asked me to forward everything I had. It cost me $800. I hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before agreeing, because by then, this wasn't about curiosity anymore. It was about proving whether the person who warned me was the same person who had been lying to me all along. 2 days later, when the report came back, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen, my hands cold, my chest tight. The accounts had used different devices, different VPNs, different usernames, but they all pinged the same physical location repeatedly. The apartment complex where Megan lived. There was more. The screenshots she had shown me in the cafe, the ones that supposedly proved Adam was cheating, were poorly edited. The font didn't match. The text bubbles were slightly off. The timestamps didn't align with standard messaging formats. Once you knew what to look for, it was obvious. She hadn't just lied to me. She had manufactured an entire reality and expected me to step into it without question. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, the weight of it pressing down on me all at once. Months of manipulation. Fake people. Fake concern. All aimed at one outcome. Breaking us apart. And now that I knew the truth, I also knew something else. I couldn't confront her yet. Not until I understood why. For the first time since this all started, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. I didn't tell Adam what I'd discovered right away, and that decision haunted me more than any lie I'd told him so far. Every time he laughed at something I said, every time he reached for my hand without hesitation, I felt the weight of what I was holding back. But I also knew that if I confronted Megan too early, if I let emotion take over, she would deny everything, twist the narrative, and retreat into the same manufactured innocence she'd used at the cafe. I needed leverage. I needed her to reveal herself. So, I did something that felt calculated in a way I wasn't used to being. I unblocked all 3 fake accounts and sent each one the exact same message. Hey, I've been thinking about what you said. Want to meet up? 2 of them responded within an hour. The third took a little longer, but by the end of the night, all 3 were eager. Not just eager, confident, familiar. They suggested times that aligned perfectly with my schedule, times they shouldn't have known were convenient unless someone had told them. The Instagram account suggested Thursday evening, mentioning offhandedly that Adam usually had his book club then. He did. The Twitter account suggested lunch on Friday, casually referencing that I worked from home that day. I did. The Discord account was vaguer, but even it leaned into the same theme: relationship stress, needing an escape, deserving more. It was chilling how personal it all felt. I didn't commit to meeting any of them. I just let them talk, let them reveal how much they knew, let them expose the invisible thread connecting all of them back to the same source. Then I set the stage. I told Adam I had to visit my parents that weekend. Family emergency. I sold the concern in my voice, the urgency, the guilt of leaving on see-through details. He immediately offered to come with me. I told him my parents wanted it to be just family. He looked disappointed but understood. Later that night, casually, I mentioned the trip to Megan through Adam. Made sure she knew I'd be gone from Friday morning until Sunday night. Made sure she knew Adam would be alone. Friday morning, I didn't go anywhere. I parked my car at a friend's place across town and stayed in my apartment watching my phone light up throughout the day like clockwork. By noon, 2 of the fake accounts had messaged me. Heard you're out of town. Must be hard leaving your boyfriend alone. Weekend away from the ball and chain. Freedom feels good, doesn't it? I didn't respond. That evening, Adam texted me that Megan had invited him over for a comfort night since I was supposedly gone. He asked if that was okay. I told him of course it was. Told him to have fun. Around 7, I watched him leave his apartment and head toward hers. I waited an hour, then called him. Hey, I said softly. The situation with my parents isn't as bad as we thought. I might come home tonight instead of Sunday. He sounded relieved immediately. That's great. I'm at Megan's place right now. Want to meet us here? No, I said. Could you come home? I want to see you. Just you. Of course, he said without hesitation. Give me 30 minutes. I watched him leave her building. Waited another 15 minutes to make sure he was gone. Then I drove over myself. When Megan opened the door, her face flickered with confusion before settling into something tighter. I thought you were out of town. Plans changed, I said evenly. Can I come in? She stepped aside too quickly to say no. Her laptop was open on the coffee table. Discord was running, notifications blinking at the top of the screen. My pulse stayed steady as I sat down across from her. We need to talk, I said. About what she asked, but her voice was already trembling. About how you've been catfishing me for months. The color drained from her face. I showed her everything. The accounts, the messages, the forensic report, the IP addresses, the proof that every lie she'd constructed led right back to her. At first, she denied remembering any of it. Then she cried. Then she tried to justify it. I was protecting him, she said. I knew you'd hurt him eventually. So you created fake women to seduce me, I asked. That's protection. He deserves better, she insisted, and I needed him to see that. Based on what I asked quietly, what have I ever done to him? She couldn't answer. And that was when the truth finally slipped out, not in words, but in silence. She wasn't afraid of me hurting Adam. She was afraid of losing him. And everything that came next, the lies, the rage, the obsession, was just her trying to hold on to something she'd already lost. Megan's tears dried faster than I expected. One moment she was crying into her hands, shoulders shaking, apologizing in fragments that didn't quite add up. The next, her posture changed. Her back straightened, her jaw tightened, and something hard settled behind her eyes. I realized then that I wasn't dealing with someone who'd made a mistake. I was dealing with someone who had rehearsed this confrontation in her head 100 different ways and was now choosing which version of herself to present. You don't understand, she said, wiping her face. He was happier before you. I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to hear herself. Happier how I asked. We had plans, she said quickly. We were going to get an apartment together, travel, do everything together like we always talked about. And then you showed up and suddenly I barely saw him anymore. Everything became about you, your schedule, your relationship, your future. There it was. Not concern, not protection, possession. He chose to date me, I said calmly. I didn't take him away from you. He chose wrong, she snapped, and I was going to prove it. I stood up then, not because I was angry, but because I was done pretending this was a misunderstanding. You already proved something, I said, just not what you think. Her eyes widened. You can't tell him. I already have everything I need, I replied. The reports, the fake accounts, the screenshots you fabricated. I'm going to tell him the truth. Panic flashed across her face. He'll hate me. Yes, I said, he probably will. I left her apartment without waiting for another word. My hands shook only once when I unlocked my car. By the time I pulled away from the curb, I felt strangely calm, like the hardest part was already behind me. When I got home, Adam was already there, curled up on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world had shifted on its axis. That was fast, he said, smiling. Everything okay with your parents? I sat down beside him and took his hand. They're fine, but we need to talk. I told him everything, from the coffee shop, to the fake accounts, to the forensic report, to Megan's confession. I didn't soften the details or dramatize them. I just laid the truth out piece by piece and watched his expression change as the story unfolded. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he stared at the floor for a long time. Then his shoulders sagged. She really did all that he asked quietly. Yes, my best friend, he said, since sophomore year. I'm so sorry, I said. He shook his head. Don't be. You didn't do anything wrong. He called Megan right then and put the phone on speaker. Did you create fake accounts to try to seduce my girlfriend? He asked. Silence. Did you fake screenshots to make it look like I was cheating? More silence, then a shaky voice. I can explain. Were you trying to destroy my relationship? He asked. I was trying to save you. From what he asked. From being happy. That was the end of it? He hung up and blocked her number, her social media see-through, every platform he could think of. Just cut her off completely. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't even close. By Monday morning, the lies started spreading. Megan told mutual friends that I'd attacked her, that I'd forced my way into her apartment and threatened her. Some people believed her. Most didn't. Adam shut it down fast, sending the forensic report to anyone who mattered. The story shifted. Sides were chosen. On Tuesday, I got an email from HR. Someone had filed a complaint accusing me of stalking and online harassment. I brought the evidence, explained everything. HR listened, investigated, and dismissed the complaint. But the message was clear. Megan wasn't done. And if she was willing to burn everything down just to avoid letting go, this was only the beginning. By Wednesday, the situation had shifted from personal betrayal to open warfare. Adam tried to keep things normal. Work errands quiet, dinners. But the tension followed us everywhere, like a low electrical hum that never fully disappeared. Every time his phone buzzed, I saw his jaw tighten. Every unfamiliar number felt like a threat waiting to announce itself. That afternoon, Adam called me from his car, his voice tight and controlled. She's here, he said, in the parking lot at my office. My stomach dropped. Where exactly? She was waiting when I came out for lunch. Said she just wanted to talk. Call the police, I said immediately. Now. He hesitated for half a second, then did it. By the time I arrived, 2 officers were already there, standing between Adam and Megan. She looked smaller than I remembered, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her expression oscillating between wounded and indignant. I'm not harassing him, she insisted to the officers. I'm just worried about my friend. The officers listened, warned her about harassment, and told her to leave. She shot me a look as she walked past pure accusation like I'd stolen something that belonged to her. The next day she escalated. Megan posted a long, rambling message on social media about toxic relationships, about women being manipulated into abandoning their friends, about how some men isolate their partners to gain control. She didn't name us, but she didn't have to. The timing made it obvious. The comments filled quickly sympathy from people who didn't know the full story. Encouragement from those who only saw a woman claiming betrayal. I stared at the screen for a long time before doing what I'd been avoiding since this started. I posted my own statement. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't vindictive, it was factual, calm, documented. I explained that Megan had created multiple fake online accounts to catfish me over several months, that when that failed, she fabricated screenshots to make it look like Adam was cheating, that we had forensic evidence tracing the accounts back to her. I attached a redacted summary of the report, screenshots, timelines, receipts. The response was immediate. Her post was overwhelmed within hours. People began asking her direct questions she couldn't answer. Sympathy turned into suspicion. Accusations followed. She deleted the post within 2 hours. By the end of the night, her entire social media presence was gone. I thought maybe that would be enough. It wasn't. That weekend, strange packages started arriving at Adam's apartment. The first was a box of self-help books about recognizing toxic relationships. No return address. The second contained printed screenshots of my old social media posts, photos with exes jokes taken out of context notes scribbled in the margins. See who she really is. The third package was a USB drive. Adam handed it to me without opening it. I don't want to see what's on this, he said quietly. I checked it on an isolated computer. The files were videos. Hours of them. Megan sitting alone in her apartment explaining why I was wrong for Adam, why their friendship mattered more, why he needed to wake up. Each video was more unhinged than the last recorded over weeks, her tone shifting from rational to desperate to angry. We took everything to the police that Monday, filed reports, requested a restraining order. The hearing was the following week. Megan showed up with a lawyer insisting she was just concerned that we were overreacting. The judge reviewed the evidence slowly, methodically. This goes beyond concern, he said finally. This is harassment, and it needs to stop. The restraining order was granted. 1 year, no contact. Megan screamed in the courtroom, claimed she was the victim, had to be escorted out. When it was over, Adam squeezed my hand. It's done, he said. And for the first time in weeks, I believed him. The silence that followed the restraining order felt unreal. No messages, no surprise appearances, no anonymous packages waiting outside Adam's door. After weeks of constant tension, the absence of chaos was almost disorienting, like stepping off a boat after a long storm and realizing the ground was finally still. We kept waiting for something else to happen, for another escalation, another attempt to claw her way back into our lives. But nothing came. The order worked. Adam started therapy not long after. 8 years of friendship doesn't unravel cleanly, especially when it turns out that what you thought was loyalty had been tangled up with jealousy and control. Some days he was angry. Other days he was sad in a quieter, heavier way. He talked about moments he'd replayed in his head, times when Megan had subtly undermined his relationships, times when she'd framed herself as the constant, when everything else was temporary. Seeing the pattern after the fact was painful. But he was doing better. He reached out to friends he'd drifted away from, people who hadn't been part of Megan's orbit. Slowly, his world expanded again. A healthier support system took shape, one built on mutual respect instead of quiet obligation. As for me, I changed too. I locked down my social media, changed every password, became hyper-aware of how much personal information I shared and with whom. I hated that part, the way caution crept into places that used to feel safe. But I also knew I'd never unsee how far someone could go when they felt threatened by happiness that didn't include them. Sometimes late at night, Adam would get quiet. Not about missing Megan exactly, but about mourning what he thought that friendship had been. I reminded him gently every time that he hadn't lost a best friend. He'd lost someone who was never really one to begin with. Real friends don't try to destroy your life when it stops revolving around them. A month later, we signed a lease together. A small place, nothing fancy, but it felt like ours the moment we walked through the door. A fresh start. Something built without interference, without secrets, without someone standing in the background counting what they were owed. The platforms eventually removed all the fake accounts once we submitted the forensic evidence. A small victory, but a satisfying one. The digital forensics expert's number is still saved in my phone, just in case. I doubt I'll ever need it again, but after everything I've learned, not to assume anything. Every so often, I wonder if Megan learned anything from all of this. Therapy, legal consequences, a burned reputation. Maybe. Maybe not. People who believe they're entitled to someone else's life rarely change just because they're told to stop. But that's not my problem anymore. I have a relationship to protect, a home to build, a future that isn't defined by someone else's inability to let go. And if there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this: when someone tries that hard